So I am going to start off with first introducing Tony. And Tony is the Youth Services Librarian at the Ashburn Library in Loudoun County. And he was formerly the Outreach Services Assistant in Leesburg and Library Associate in Medina County District Library in Ohio. Welcome, Tony.
I do a program called Guys Read, and I'm going to talk mostly about Guys Read. There are other book discussion groups in Ashburn Library. There's an American Girls Book Club. There's a Magic Tree House Book Club. There's an Author of the Month. Formerly was a Virginia Reader's Choice or Virginia Young Reader. And there are other libraries have others, and I'd be interested in hearing any of your youth book clubs. I mentioned too that Virginia Young Readers or Virginia Readers, now called Virginia Reader's Choice. States have a variety of book clubs. Virginia's is Virginia Reader's Choice. Not very exciting. There's a Black-Eyed Susan Award, children's book in Maryland. Sasquatch Award in Washington State. Right? You have for a children's book. The Blue Hen Book Awards in Delaware. Different kinds of awards that children choose their favorite book. They're given a set of books. Usually some agency in whatever state, libraries or schools will have these contests, and it's sort of like a Newbery where they choose the best book of that year. But I want to talk primarily about my book club called Guys Read. I started Guys Read in Ashburn Library in 2005 when my boss suggested I try forming one. For each Guys Read session, the previous book session, we hand out books for the next book club, so they have a month to be able to read that book for the next session. We have a very generous advisory group at Ashburn Library. The books are purchased for them, so they have the books there to keep. Brothers, of which there are several sets, are encouraged to share their books. So even though they don't want the other brother to do it, they try to share the books. In a typical Guys Read session, I try to have 3 modes of interaction, either lone, small group, or large group. They don't all arrive at the same time. I have kind of a buffer activity where they'll do something with paper, or they'll be browsing some books or looking at some artifact as they come in, so that way we don't have to wait for everyone to start. We'll gather together to discuss the book, usually in some activity, like reading trivia questions, or we'll talk about the book. Then we might watch a film or do some physical activity related, however peripherally, to the book. During the discussion time, we sit on the floor, at least the boys do, and they wander around. They sit there ignoring me, or they're reading something else that interests them. It's very loose, and it's a spatial place. It's not like we sit in a circle and we all talk about our feelings in relation to the book. We react to it in the ways that is comfortable. They might not say anything at all. The point, if there is any, is to have a place to discuss books where they're not assessed and to show that Guys Read in a non-academic setting. And we try to do things that are interesting and fun. The fun things, the activities, however peripherally related, I use my imagination and examples from other Guys Read book groups. We did a book called Jack Tales. We had a sack race. There's an old folktale, Appalachian folktale with Wickety Whack into my sack, sort of magic sack, so we did that. We read Calvin and Hobbes once. We traced comics and cartoons with tracing paper. I don't know if a lot of you remember doing that. Boys do like to do that. We read Henry in the Clubhouse by Beverly Cleary. We did a geodesic dome with newspapers. We just finished Stanford Wong Flunk's Big Time, and we crumpled up paper and we played horse and waste paper baskets. In the year of the Born Jackie Robinson, we played wiffle ball. We have a nice, big, enormous space over there. That was great. And in the Dangerous Book for Boys, a great book for boys, hope everybody knows about this book, great book for boys, lots of great activities, but we did juggling, so it was something that we do. Beside the activities, the audiovisual things we'll look at too. We listen to Three Skeleton Key, which is an old radio program, Vincent Price, for Bunnicula, because it was kind of scary and it was Halloween when we read it. Homer Price, we did a Weston Woods video. Popular Science Almanac for Kids we did Bill Nye the Science Guy. We just sat there and watched Bill Nye the Science Guy. The Guinness Book of World Records, we watched a documentary on Robert Wadlow, who was the largest man in the world. And How Angel Patterson Got His Name, great book by Gary Paulson. We watched Mythbusters episode about a guy who strapped himself to a lawn chair and attached a bunch of helium balloons with a pellet gun to future descent from the closet and a walkie-talkie with his girlfriend. Mythbusters, they try to see if they could do that. And How Angel Peterson Got His Wings is all about guys doing stupid things, and doing dumb things when you're a kid. And in that session, I had the guys' fathers there too. So we all talked about the dumb things that their boys shouldn't do. I'm sure they're still doing. I think the best session that I had was by our founder, John Sheska, who is a children's book author, who's now the ambassador to young children's literature for the Library of Congress. He wrote a series called Knights of the Kitchen Table, which is a juvenile book, part of the Time Warp Trio series. When the boys came in, we had a big plate of Limburger cheese. He wrote the sticky cheese man, and sticky cheese, boys, they're sort of consistent. We had a short discussion about the book, and with the trivia cards, and we sat down and watched John Sheska's favorite television show growing up, Bullwinkle. They weren't familiar with Bullwinkle. This one's a great use of our time. So they're all going to find out about Boris Vadanoff and Natasha Patel, right? Natasha Patel. We had a contest. Sometimes we do competitive things, and had the boys all sit there. I gave them each a sheet of paper and a pencil, and they waited for the activity. And the activity was spell John Sheska's name. Nobody got it right. Out of 30 boys, not one boy, and I don't think I could do it right now. How to spell it begins with J-O-N, so already half of them. The one who got the closest, the prize was a great boy treat, a pack of those variety pack of cereals. Remember those variety packets? He'd eat right out of the bowl, and his mother was appalled, of course, all that sugar and all that. The guy loved it. So I want to talk a little bit about the choosing of books. I try to have a mix of fiction and nonfiction. I mentioned Calvin and Hobbes, the Guinness Book of World Records. I try to do contemporary things. The Day My Butt Went Psycho, sort of a real boyish book by Andy Griffiths, something like Captain Underpants. Classic, what you might say boy, everybody loves it, boy books like James and the Giant Peach, Hoboken Chicken Emergency, Bunnicula. But I read older things too. Beverly Cleary, Robert McCloskey, E. Nesbitt. If you ask me what my favorite book growing up as a kid, I don't know the name of it. I forgot it. I read it over and over and over again. But my favorite book was how to make structures like ice shanties and lean-tos and that sort of thing. Boys like that. I remember that, and remember we try to bring as much nonfiction as we can. Nonfiction that we're able to talk about, in that space, and at least have some activities about it. My sort of dream books would be Mad Magazine, which is kind of something that we talk about Mad Magazine or a newspaper or something like that. Or Chilton's Manual, I think that would be.
Chilton's Motorcycle Manual.
Motorcycle Manual, yeah. Maybe we can put something, and take it apart, put it together, we'll get bored and we'll have parts all. We'll clean up that mess up later. Something to be said too for instincts. When I was choosing the book, one of the first books we did was the Worst Case Scenario Handbook. If you look at it, and there's some sort of iffy things in there, like how to deliver a baby. There's not much detail in there, but I wondered about it, and I talked to a more seasoned librarian, and she said, the language is too much, the theme, there wouldn't be interest. What would you talk about it for a book club? But it worked out fine. I decided to go with it anyway. So sometimes that instinct thing, not always, sometimes with recommendations of the boys, The Day My Butt Went Psycho. It was just really boring, just every flatulence and butt joke in there. But the boys liked it well enough. But I didn't have really much. Let's see. Oh, and one last thing I wanted to talk about, just generally youth book groups, books for children. As much as I resist it, branding has a lot to do with it. Things like Guys Read. Guys Read is a name, www.guysread.com. John Sheska talks about it. The Magic Treehouse Book Club. It's a set of books everybody knows. I know it's the series already. And that great monster of merchandising, the American Girl book clubs. There's dolls, there's merchandise, there's all sorts of things and accessories. Although we might resist it, all that part of it, there is a part of it, that reading part of it, that brings them all together. My colleague in Ashburn Library brings all the history. They bring their dolls, but she has nothing to do with the dolls, and she talks history, and she talks about what's going on in that era, and it's an educational thing, and it's a time to get together. So I just wanted to say something about that branding thing is really important, and can be effective use of getting people to come to the activity.
Are there questions for Tony? Yeah.